All right, in today's lesson 5.7, we're going to be using congruent triangles. And we're going to be using congruent triangles to prove different parts of the triangles to be congruent to one another. So let's start off with our first vocabulary term here, which is corresponding parts. And those are sides and angles that are congruent in each figure. I have right here already drawn out two triangles, triangle ABC and triangle DEF. So go ahead and include that into your notes. And the idea behind what we're proving today is this. It's not proving that the triangles are congruent, although that's the first part. In red, it says we're going to prove that angle B is congruent to angle E. So, like I said, our first step right here, or what we're actually going to start off by doing is, one, we're going to prove that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So once I could prove that the two triangles are congruent, then in step 2, I could prove that angle B is congruent to angle E using what we call CP-CTC. And what does CP-CTC stand for? Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, and so you don't want to write corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent like each and every time you prove something here. So we'll go ahead and abbreviate that with CP-CTC. So once again, we are proving that two triangles are congruent first using side angle side, side side side, hypotenuse leg, ASA, you name it, just not angle side side. So once we prove two triangles to be congruent, then we go ahead right here, we use CP-CTC to prove any part that happens to be congruent in each triangle or corresponding part of the triangles to be congruent, whether it be sides or angles that we did not prove in the initial proof. So to wind down chapter 5 right here, guess what? The only way we could finish things off is by doing more proofs. So let's take a look at number 1. Okay, they are saying right here that I want to prove that UV is congruent to XV. But remember, step 1 is to somehow prove that these two triangles that you see there are congruent. So let's go ahead in our statement, let's add some given stuff. Okay, so look at the diagram. Let's see what we have given. There may not be any written statement straight out or outright, but I could see right here that angle T is congruent to angle W. I also see right here that segment TV is congruent to segment WV. That is given. So next up is to think, well, let's strategize. Are there any angles or any sides that I can say are congruent? And if I can, does that help me figure out or use one of our congruent statements that we have? ASA, SAS, SSS, etc. Statement 2. What can I say is congruent? I'll give you a moment to think about it. But I can say right here that angle UVT is congruent to angle XVW. Why is that? Vertical angles are congruent. Okay? So, knowing that, looks like I have right here enough information for my third statement to say that triangle UTV is congruent to triangle X. Let's put XWV because we have angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle. So I'll just go ahead and put ASA right here. So now that I understand that two of these triangles are congruent, remember, all of the corresponding parts will be congruent as well. So I can go to statement 4 and say that UV is congruent to XV. Reason? CP, CTC. Corresponding parts of corresponding triangles are congruent. CP, CTC. All right, I could also say right here that segment UV is congruent to segment VX, CPCTC. I could say that angle U is congruent to angle X now, CPCTC. Segment TU is congruent to segment WX. You know it, CPCTC. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 2 next. We're going to say that TS is congruent to VR. Okay, I look here and I see some things that really stand out to me. Hopefully one of them you know is the fact that we have ourselves a right triangle. And what do we use to prove right triangles? Think what we did earlier on. Before we get to that, let's go ahead and just put what's given, right? Certain things I see here is that RT is congruent to UV. I've got right here RS is congruent to what is it? We got UR. Okay, we want to make sure we put things in the correct order. What else do we have here? I guess we go ahead and put those two. I think those are the critical things right here. No, I guess we have angle R, or sorry, angle T is congruent to angle V. All right, so let's go ahead and put that as given. And they're congruent because they're right angles. So now let's go ahead right here in statement 2. Guess what? I have enough information to prove two triangles are congruent. I could say that triangle RTS is congruent to triangle UVR. And I can say that because we have the hypotenuse-leg congruence theorem. Right? 90-degree triangle or right triangle, I've got hypotenuse and I've got a leg RT to be congruent with the 90-degree angle right triangle up here, hypotenuse and leg congruent to each triangle. All right, man, that was easy. Just take a little bit of thought, right? So now that I have two triangles to be congruent, let's go ahead right here. I could say all of the parts and sides, for example, TS congruent to VR because of CPCTC. Just like that. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's take a look at number 3. Let's see if we could prove that angle Jklk is congruent to angle MLN. All right, so let's see right here. We have, let's say, angle J. Or let's be a little more specific right here. I've got angle KJL is congruent to angle NML. All right, so what else do they have given? We have JL is congruent to ML, and they also tell us that Jk is congruent to Mn. So all of that is given. And it looks like based off of that, they made things real easy for us. But remember, we should already know how to prove these triangles to be congruent. That's what the previous sections were about. So we have enough information to say that triangle, we go ahead and put, let's say KJL is congruent to triangle NML. Reason, angle, side angle. So look right here, angle or side, oh, not angle, side angle, side angle, side. We have side included angle and the other side right there for both triangles. So now that I have proven these two triangles to be congruent, step 3 says, let's say angle JLK, which is this one right here, is congruent to angle MLN right there. And we have our reason, CPCTC. All right, corresponding parts of congruent triangles, congruent. And last but not least, number 4, we're going to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. So let's go ahead and do that, okay? How are we going to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2? Now, I don't want you writing a plan. I want you to actually prove it. So let's take a look and see what we could do to prove things. If I look at some of these parts of the triangles, okay, I want to prove that angle 1 is somehow congruent to angle 2. Let's highlight a few things. Let's see what we got here. I look and let me see this right here. I've got myself a triangle. Okay. I've got that triangle right there. I've got this triangle. I'll go ahead and outline in red. And there are some parts that really stand out to me. Because I feel like just looking at those two triangles, I have enough information. Let's see what we could put down right here in our statement, what's given. They do give you a lot of stuff. And some of the stuff might be useful. Some maybe not so much. All right, so let's see here. If I take a look, I've got angle FGJ. That right there is congruent to, right, we're taking a look at this one. Angle FGJ, that's congruent to angle, let's go ahead and put angle HIJ. Okay, so I could say that right there is given. What else can we include to be given? I see right here a congruent segment. So how about GJ is congruent to IJ? Looks good. Is there any other angle that I can prove or they show right here to be congruent? There is. Now, maybe I could use the 90-degree angles. Maybe. But I think there's going to be a lot more work for that. So how about this? In statement 2, I can say right here that angle GJF is congruent to angle IJH. Talking about these two angles right here. And what's that reason? It's that good old trusty vertical angles congruence theorem. So now if I take a look at all my information here, looks like I can go ahead and state in statement 3 that I have two congruent triangles. I could say triangle GJF is congruent to triangle IJH. And I see right there angle, included side, and an angle. Now that I have two triangles right here to be congruent, I can go ahead and say right here in statement number 4 that angle 1 is definitely congruent to angle 2 now because of CPCTC. And there you go. Now an expert at proving two triangles to be congruent. And then once again, after that, you can prove any side or any angle is congruent as well using corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent.